see this very much. I didn't see it on Fox News hardly at all. I didn't see it on any other mainstream media about the small part of the wall that they've actually finished. I know it's only 2.5 miles, but he's starting what he said he was going to do. It's not like it's going to happen all at once. But again, you really didn't see this on the mainstream media as far as I know. And I looked for quite a long time. You know, the mainstream media has been really funny for the longest time, ever since I've been alive, but also it's just misinformation that continues to overwhelm the airwaves, especially cable television. I can say that I don't watch much of cable television unless it has to do with sports or the mainstream media, but just to get their intake or their opinions about things. It is, yeah, if it bleeds, it leads. That's right. You know, if there isn't bloodshed, seems like the mainstream media is not a part of it, and they really pronounce it, and then they blame President Trump for it too, or they're blaming everyone but themselves for the society that we have to deal with at this point. This raising a false flag, this cartoon depicts it exactly the way I think it went about. And I know you've probably heard me say this once or twice, but as you can see, even in this cartoon, the stamps aren't stamped, as though the Postal Service didn't even ship it. So how could they say that it was shipped to these addresses when there wasn't any evidence of the Postal Service even shipping it? Because up until this point, I haven't seen any pictures or articles you'll see coming up that show any of those packages that were supposedly sent having any type of postal stamp on them. The president knows this, and it's starting to come to light of what he's been talking about for a long time about this fake news and mainstream media, and he continues to do it. In a lot of his speeches, he continues to say it. Sometimes you think, well, we've heard him say that, and he kind of looks funny when he says it, but it's because it hasn't gotten through to most people. You know, we're almost a little too hypnotized. I mean, I have to think twice sometimes, because if I don't continue to start noticing the little details of what President Trump seems to understand a lot more than any of us, including myself, because he's privy to that kind of thing, we need to wake up. And he's right. We need to think. And here's a little tidbit. I noticed this picture, ladies and gentlemen. You notice how Soros supposedly lives in Bedford, New York, and then Chippewa, New York is where the Clintons live? It's not too far away from each other, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, can we even get a clue? Vicky Ferguson, thank you for coming to the chat. Katie Penniff, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Thank you for coming to the chat. Speedboard Zapfing 3R, thanks for coming to the chat. Greetings from California. There's all the envelopes, ladies and gentlemen, that I have found. I hope your screen isn't blurry. But all the evidence that I can find in images online when it comes to packages with all the different names on it. One thing is there's no stamp, as I said, on it like you would ship something. And coming up is some things, some pictures that you'll see that I looked for about 6 hours, literally trying to find all of these packages and their images of what the mainstream media has tried to put in front of us. And yet I have not seen a package that looks like it's actually been shipped through the Postal Service. Night Eagle, thank you for coming to the chat. Barbara Renjniak, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Thank you for coming to the chat. As you can see, here are some articles. These are either mainstream affiliates or obviously Breitbart even will put this on there. I don't know if Breitbart is complicit or not, but they're still putting on stuff, trying to tell us, that, hey, this is supposedly what happened. Alpha Rock Mitz, thank you for coming to the chat. Alpha Rock states that the stamps are normally hand canceled. Well, on bigger packages like that, I would assume that they go through a monitoring anyway. So maybe one thing that they could say is that, well, they started the process of shipping them and then they discovered what was inside those packages, so they weren't shipped. But why would they continue to tell us in every article that I've read that they were sent to these various addresses? I'm a wreck. It's okay. Thanks for coming to the chat. Rick Sloan, thank you for coming to the chat. Deborah Ragsdale, listening from Central Florida, thank you for coming to the chat. Yeah, I don't know about that stamps normally hand canceled. I guarantee you they wouldn't do that with just regular envelopes. I mean, it would take them forever, wouldn't it? They have machines that do that. And here we go, ladies and gentlemen. If you haven't seen this picture so far, this is what they're doing in New York City. The horrible atrocities that happened in Pennsylvania, I understand. The anti-Semite attitude, I understand that there's no room for that type of stuff. But isn't this also anti whatever? If you disagree with somebody, I understand. But, there are people in specific states that are just so hypnotized, they have no clue what's coming after them. They have no clue what's coming toward them. And it's just amazing every day how I notice that more and more. Sergey, welcome to the chat. David Lundgren, welcome to the chat. From Sweden, David, welcome. Michelle Fulslier, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Welcome to the chat from Louisiana. Any specific questions, guys? George says all the stupid snowflakes come from, for me, the New Jersey going to California. I know because I live in Jersey, but I'm not one of them stupid snowflakes. Well, I'm glad for that, George. Thank you for that. Alpha Rock says that machines can't cancel odd-sized packages. Correct. So they didn't even hand cancel them then. That's either how stupid they are or, and here's a little tidbit. One of my buddies, he was looking at it and I asked him, it was on television. It was on regular mainstream media. And I said, what's so special about that? And he just looked at it, didn't say anything. And then about a minute later, I said, the stamps aren't even stamped. And he realized that, and he said, I wouldn't have noticed that unless you mentioned that. And I'm like, yes, of course. That's exactly what they hope for. That's what probably 90 to 95% of people don't notice. They just take it as the mainstream media's word. That is the hypnosis. That's how they've got most of us, because we're just complicit. We just don't even know it because of our indoctrination. Sergey says, did you notice there is no stickers? It's one big print on one piece. Yeah. I mean, they wanted to say that there were 6, stamps on the packages, but that means nothing if you don't ship it, right? Deborah Ragsdale says this is not what they're talking about right now, but I would like to know what President Trump is doing about the caravan heading to the United States. Well, I saw in an article today, especially in Fox News. Now, you just can't trust Fox News either, but supposedly General Jim Mattis has actually went down into Mexico himself, because supposedly the Mexican authorities were not cooperating with what President Trump was asking them to do. But I also think that the caravan is much further south than what we thought. I don't even know if they're in Mexico City yet at this point, because as you can see, Mexico City is pretty far down there, at least almost, if not 1,000 miles. I've never driven down there that far, but I can tell you that it's vast, and getting up to the southern border would take some time.